Friends Have Benefits, Chapter 1, A Second First Encounter. Soarin stood at attention, his 4 hooves perfectly spaced on the floor, a defiant yet worried look on his face. Arrayed in front of him was Spitfire, several high-ranking officers he did not know, and one of the team's medical officers. The officers were quietly conversing with the doctor in hushed tones, and Spitfire was staring at Soarin silently. He had already endured several days of grueling tests and interviews, but the time it was taken for the Tribunal to make its final decision seemed indefinite. Soarin's mind started drifting, staring off blankly at the wall above Spitfire's head. Soarin found his thoughts going back to the incident. Flashback, flashback, flashback. Soarin flexed his wings experimentally. He winced as a dull pain at the root of the wing flared up. Grimacing in pain, Soarin pushed the pain to the back of his mind. He'd had worse. Satisfied that his wing would hold out for the training session, he wriggled into his tight, form-fitting flight suit. He let out a small yelp of pain as his wing cramped and got caught in a fold of the suit. Cringing, he freed his wing from the awkward position and continued to pull his flight suit on. "I'll get it checked after training," he told himself, just like he had the last 3 times. Soarin would rather fly with a broken wing than miss a training session. The one time he had been ill for a session, Spitfire and Rapidfire had to bind his wings to keep him at home. A quiet whistle to get his attention came from the entrance to the dressing room. "Hey, you good? The rest of the team is waiting for you," Spitfire asked impatiently, leaning into the dressing room with a bored look on her face. The ever-fiery mane on her head seemed to burn as she moved. "Yeah, I'm fine," Soarin said, hoping she hadn't heard him cry in pain. "Your wing still giving you trouble?" "I said I'm fine," Soarin snapped a little harshly. "Let me see it," Spitfire ordered. Grumbling, Soarin stretched his wing out so she could feel it. "You're not flying on this," she said as she ran her hood down his wing. Eliciting another yelp of pain from Soarin. "I've had worse. I won't let you fly until you get this checked out. Last time I checked, Lieutenant Commander, I outrank you." "And I am the team captain," she snapped back. "Don't make me pull rank on you," Soarin said lowly. Swearing in a high, unladylike fashion, Spitfire spun around and marched out of the room. "Your funeral," she warned as she disappeared down the short corridor to where the rest of the team were waiting. "Soarin, tighten your lines. You're going all over the place," Spitfire warned him. Pulling out of the formation to criticise his performance, Soarin grunted back. He didn't need to be told. He knew he was flying poorly. Rejoining the formation, Spitfire dived towards the ground almost vertically until snapping her wings out, dramatically losing speed and throwing herself into a new course. The other 3 bolts pulled the manoeuvre movement later, reforming behind their leader. As Soarin flared his wings, though, a sudden flare of pain shot up his body, cramping his right wing. Crying out at the sudden pain, Soarin tumbled out of the sky only to slam into the unyielding ground. A few moments later, he bounced a few times painfully, each hit making his body move in ways it wasn't supposed to. By the time he came to a stop, a few short seconds later, he was a battered and bleeding mess. He clenched his teeth, mumbly noticing that some word this separately, trying not to howl in pain. A few moments later, the medical team was by his side. "Stay with me, Commander. Tell me about your day. How's it been? Just stay with me," one of the orderlies said calmly as he expertly stabilised his patient. "I crashed, you idiot. Do you think I've had a good day?" Soarin rasped, his vision fading. "Stay with me, damn it." "So tired," Soarin muttered, finally allowing himself to black out. A slow, constant beeping awoke Soarin. Opening his eyes, he found himself in a pristine white hospital bed. Whitewashed walls, white curtains, white everything. He coughed roughly. Something down his throat was making it hard to breathe. Looking down, he saw a tube snaking across his bed down into his mouth. He panicked for a moment before a nurse appeared from the hallway and gave him a friendly smile. "One moment, Commander. I just need to remove your feeding tube." She trotted over to his bed and fiddled with the device for a few moments. She then gently pulled the tube down his throat a thread of vicious liquid dripping from the end. Feeding tube? Commander? Soarin asked. He tried to utter something else, but coughed instead. You've been out for nearly a month, Commander, the nurse helpfully told him, offering a glass of water. A month? Soarin spluttered. It was a hard crash, Commander. You're lucky to be alive. Yeah. Lucky, Soarin muttered. I'll just go grab Dr. Hall. I'm sure he'll want to talk to you now you're awake. Soarin nodded as the nurse quietly left the room. Soarin lay his head back and tried to think about what happened. Nothing. He couldn't remember anything. He swore quietly as he tried to recall some memories of the incident. His thoughts were interrupted by a unicorn with a white coat walking in. Good to see you awake. How do you feel? Rubbish. The unicorn chuckled. I expected you to say that. He levitated a clipboard over to him and started scribing something. How long have I got to be here, Doc? Soarin asked. A while yet. You all broke almost all the bones in your front right leg. 5 ribs. Your left wing was completely shattered, and we had to realign your spinal column. Not to mention all the other small fractures around your body. You also had a punctured lung and several severe internal bleeding. You're lucky you can move at all. Now Pegasus physiology is remarkably tough, and due to your fast healing, the vast majority of your injuries healed while you were comatose. But you still take a while to recover fully, if ever. He flipped a page on the clipboard. We also had some acute nerve damage in both of your wings, so they'll be slower to respond and more sluggish than you're used to. He flipped the last page. Luckily for you, though, you seem to have a thick head, so you don't appear to have any major brain damage. Bit of a retrograde amnesia is to be expected, though, but I'm sure that'll come back eventually. Will I be able to fly with the Wonderbolts? Soarin asked, concerned. That's not up for me to decide, but I doubt you'll be up to strenuous stunt flying like that for several months at least. Maybe never. You're certainly not fit for military services. The injuries you suffered would make you far too much of a liability if you were ever deployed. I see, Soarin said hollowly. But we'll see. You have a long rehabilitation program ahead of you, so make the most of it. And who knows? Maybe they'll take you back, he said, trying to cheer Soarin up. Yeah, maybe, Soarin muttered, rubbing a hoof over his leg. He could feel several large scars under his fur. What are these from? We had to insert a steel rod into your leg and replace your knee entirely. Those scars will be around for a while, the doctor muttered, flipping through the clipboard one last time. Doc, I can't remember anything about the crash, Soarin said, slightly worried. As I said, retrograde amnesia is completely normal for crash victims, the doctor said unworriedly, shoving the clipboard roughly back into a sling at the end of the bed. I'm sure Spitfire will be delighted to hear you're awake, he said cheerfully, walking out of the room. Soarin screwed up his face in confusion. Who? Spitfire looked at Soarin with an unamused expression. I'm disappointed, Soarin. The only time someone has forgotten me was when we had that night out, drinking, and you, Fleetfoot, and Surprise left me on a taxi home. The poor driver didn't notice me back there for several hours. Soarin perked up a moment. I remember Surprise, but not you. Spitfire cast an eye over to Dr. Hall. Are you sure this is normal? I believe the commander is suffering from more severe amnesia than I thought. Soarin has been out on the team longer than you, has he not? And Surprise joined before you, correct? Spitfire nodded. Maybe he's lost all memory up to a certain point in his career. He thought for a moment, thinking of how he could prove his theory. Soarin, what anniversary of the Summer Sun Festival did we just celebrate? 1002, he said. Dr. Hall's eyes widened with surprise. That's interesting. He seems to have that right. Selective memory loss, perhaps? Soarin, what's your favourite food, and what is the best time you ever had it? Soarin screwed up his face. Apple pie sure is good. Best one I've ever had was from that bakery over in Trottenham 3 years ago. He trailed off. Spitfire looked at the doctor. He's half right. He loves his pies. But the best one he ever had was at the Grand Galloping Gala a couple of years back. One of our fans saved it from becoming a lovely stain in the Royal Ballroom. Seems he's forgotten most of his career, or anything connected to his career, the doctor muttered. Will it come back? Spitfire asked, a concerned look on her face. It should, in time. Wobbly, 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 wobbly. Commander Soarin, a rough voice barked at him. Focus, please! Snapping out of his reminiscing, Soarin refocused his attention on the panel of officers in front of him. Sorry, sir. Now that you're back with us, we've reached our verdict, the grizzled Pegasus said. Soarin instinctively tensed up. We thoroughly examined the results from your rehabilitation course, and, well, to be frank, they're nothing short of a miracle. Most Pegasi wouldn't be able to walk after a crash like that, and few others have served with us as much distinction in the Wonderbolts. But unfortunately, we have no choice but to grant you an honourable discharge from the military services. Your rehabilitation may have gone well, but due to lack of recovery from your amnesia and several compromising medical conditions, you'll never be fit for the military service, and sadly, that means you're out of the Wonderbolts. We'd have put you in a pen pusher role, but we know you were never made out to fill in paperwork. I'm sorry, Commander, but there's nothing else we can do. He stood along with the rest of the board. It's been an honour serving with you, Commander. We're losing one of our best. Soarin's face fell. He shakily saluted the standing officers. Thank you, sir. They returned the salute before filing out of the room, leaving Soarin alone with Spitfire. Still don't remember me? Spitfire asked, walking over to him. Not since I woke up, Mum, Soarin added, aware that she now outranked him. I'm sorry. Why? I should have stopped you from training. If I had, this wouldn't have happened. Sounds like I was being stubborn. You were. I should have stopped you, though. Don't beat yourself up over it. Spitfire cocked an eyebrow at him. I will. We had a lot of good times, Soarin, and we'll miss you. All of us. She gave him a quick peck on the cheek. It's been a pleasure, Mum, apparently, Soarin said with a hint of amusement in his voice. Spitfire nodded at him before leaving the room, leaving Soarin alone. Soarin sighed and slumped his shoulders. He had been expecting this, but he retained some hope that the board would have managed to keep him on in some position, even a desk job. Now what was he going to do with his life? The Wonderbolts had been his world. Flying was his passion. And now he had nothing. He racked his head trying to remember something, anything, from the last few years of service. He cursed under his breath. As usual, his mind was empty, his memories locked away in a seemingly impenetrable box. Trotting outside in the cold, unwelcoming halls, he shaded his eyes from the warm afternoon sun, his spirit lowering even further as a biting cold wind blew across the empty courtyard. Right now, I need a freaking drink, he thought grumpily as he pulled his tie off. The tavern was bustling with activity. By the time Soarin arrived, many ponies wanting to get out of the chilling wind or simply eager to give their bits to the cheery bartender that was serving drinks. Much to Soarin's surprise, he went unnoticed. Without the signature flight suit or uniform, Soarin looked just like a regular Pegasus pony. One would have thought his cutie mark would have been a dead giveaway, but surprisingly few ponies knew what Soarin's cutie mark was, given that most of the time it was covered up by his flight suit. Nevertheless, Soarin enjoyed the fact he wasn't without being hounded by fans or chased by the paparazzi. He trotted up to the bar, eager to get a drink. What'll it be, buddy? The bartender asked, wiping an empty tankard with a cloth. He regarded Soarin with a look that someone had when they saw someone who was oddly familiar, but didn't know why. Your finest apple cider, thanks, Soarin said. He tried to sound casual, but still had militaristic sound in his voice. He mentally reminded himself that he would have to get accustomed to living a life of a civvy. He fished out a few bits and placed them on the counter. The bartender nodded and filled a mug. His eyes still on Soarin, though. Expertly topping the cup, he passed it to Soarin with another curious glance. "Thanks," Soarin mumbled, picking up his drink and making his way through the crowded tavern to an empty booth in the corner. He sat down, the chair under him creaking as it took his muscular frame. Could it really be over? He thought numbly. He sipped his drink slowly, the fragrant smell of spiced apples tingling his sinuses. A career that I've had for most of my life gone, and I can't even remember it. However many years down the drain, he thought bitterly. A few memories flashed through his mind. The joy he had felt when his transfer to the Wonderbolts had been approved. The first flight demonstration he had flown. Gone, he thought sourly. He was snapped out of his reminiscing when another tankard slammed down in front of him, spilling a few drops of alcohol on the table. Running his eyes up, the lithe leg connected to the cup, Soarin was greeted by the sight of a slightly drunk mare. Her magenta eyes were slightly unfocused, and her wind-swept rainbow mane was in dire need of a comb. "Hey," she said, leaning on the table. "Hi," Soarin responded, slightly irritated. He looked around, trying to find something else to look at besides the searing mare in front of him. Finding nothing, he dropped his gaze into the frothy top of his drink. "Hey," she said again. "Hi," Soarin said, starting to get a little annoyed. You look familiar," she slurred. "Do I know you?" "I don't know you, so probably not." "Oh," she said, slightly disappointed. Soarin shook his head slowly and sighed. He took a heft of a chug of cider, his annoyance evaporating as the sweet drink rolled down his throat. He drained the mug and placed it down on the table, noting that with some satisfaction that the rainbow-maned mare had vanished. He shut his eyes and sighed with relief. Annoying. Cute, but very annoying. And drunk, he thought. She does somehow look familiar, though. "Hey, I got you another drink." Soarin snapped his eyes open and groaned softly, and the rainbow Pegasus had returned, a few mugs balanced on a tray which was dangerously wobbling on her back. Soarin would have sworn, but his nostrils were graced with the sweet smell of more apple cider. Putting aside his annoyed feelings for now, Soarin reached over and grabbed the mug of cider. "Thanks," he mumbled. He took a draught before continuing. "How did you know which cider I liked?" "I smelt it," she mumbled back, putting the tray on the table and sitting across from him. "And my friend makes it, so I know it's the best." "Your friends? With the pony that makes this?" Soarin asked, pointing at the mug of frothy liquid. The mare nodded simply before raising a mug herself. "Drink up, matey," she said in a mock pirate voice. She laughed before downing a fair portion of the drink. "I'm not your matey," Soarin thought. "I didn't catch your name," she said, leaning across the table. "I didn't give it to you." She backed away and put her hooves up. "Look out, badass right here," she mumbled sarcastically. She immediately brightened. "Lion up, buddy. Drinks are on me." She leaned on her hoof and stared at Soarin, a playful look in her eyes. "What?" Soarin asked after a few minutes. The fact that she hadn't blinked was starting to unnerve Soarin slightly. "You're cute," she finally said. "Oh, great. Now she thinks I'm cute," Soarin muttered sarcastically, biting back a snarky reply. He decided to play along. After all, this mare had just offered free drinks all night. "Thanks," he mumbled. "I suppose you are too." "I know, right? Just because I'm so awesome," she said egotistically while brushing a hoof through her rainbow mane. Soarin planted his head onto the table. He could tell this wouldn't end well. "Drink up," he muttered to himself. "Wouldn't mind waking up to you, next to you in the morning," the mare hinted, winking suggestively. "You're drunk," Soarin stated simply. "I know. Why aren't you?" she giggled back. "I wonder," Soarin said dryly. "Drink up!" the mare cried again, moving around the table and planting her rump on the lounge next to Soarin and leaning up against him. Soarin grumbled, but decided to tolerate the invasion of his personal space. At least she smelt nice. I swear, if she does... Soarin didn't get to finish his statement before the mare planted a sloppy wet kiss on his cheek. Oh, gross! Get off me! Soarin yelled. He pushed her off him and moved to leave the booth, his temper starting to fray. Wait, come back, she pleaded. I'm sorry, she said innocently. Soarin turned to give her a piece of his mind, but found himself confronted with the most, and he hated to admit it, adorable set of puppy dog eyes he had ever seen. Don't go, she asked. Soarin mumbled a few choice words under his breath. Fine, he muttered. Yeah, she yelled, leading him back to the booth. Oh, I'm going to regret this, aren't I? Soarin asked aloud. Soarin cracked an eye open experimentally. He quickly shut it as the harsh sunlight invaded his retina. Oh, he muttered, rolling over to escape the light's vicious beams. He reached over to find his bedside table missing. In fact, half his bed missing. What the hell? He muttered. What happened? He cautiously opened his eyes again. Oh, he wasn't in his room. Oh, Soarin mumbled again, looking down at the bed beneath him. He wasn't in his bed. Oh my, he said, his eyes snapping open as his foggy brain put two and two together. He turned his head, almost dreading what he would see. The rainbow-maned Pegasus was there. Oh, shit, he muttered, digging his head back into the pillow. What the hell did I do last night? He let out a deep sigh and stealthily crept out of the bed, careful not to wake the still sleeping mare. He crept through the house with as much subtlety as a flying horse. A comparison, he realised, was particularly good. Being hungover and trying to be stealthily, Soarin discovered, was not a good idea. Blessed by the fortune that the unknown mare was a heavy sleeper, Soarin somehow made it to the door without waking her. Goodbye, I guess? Thanks, he whispered, feeling extremely awkward. The mare snored back. Cringing, Soarin opened the door and stepped outside. The cool morning air, a pleasant relief, spreading his wings. Soarin stifled a yawn. Whatever he had done last night, it seemed that sleeping was not one of them. Snorting in amusement, he vectored towards a small lake, the clear blue water sparkling in an inviting manner. Maybe later I can go for a swim, when my head doesn't feel like an Ursa stood on it, he said to the water as if it could hear him. Pulling his wings in tight, he dipped into the lake, submerging himself for a second before using his momentum to shoot out again. The cool water was refreshing and somewhat relieved the pain of Soarin's head. Pulling up into the sky, Soarin started talking to himself. Right, first order of business, new job. I've lost my old, which I can hardly remember, so how about I get a new one? Sounds good. He waved casually between a small clump of clouds, a sharp pain coming from the base of his wing as he pulled the sudden manoeuvres. Whoa, ease up, Soarin, don't want to hurt yourself again, he admonished. He tilted his wings slightly, angling for a small fluffy cloud he could rest on. Oh, there we go, he muttered, as he flopped ungracefully onto the cloud. He ran a hoof through his ruffled mane, and turned his eyes towards where he had come from. A few minutes passed before a thin rainbow streak emerged from the distant house, and disappeared in the direction of a large village. Soarin let out a breath. He hadn't realised he had been holding. Number 2. Watch out for rainbow-maned Pegasus. Hopefully I'll never have to see whatever her name was again. That would be weird, he summarised, as if it agreed with him, his stomach rumbling loudly. Looks like get some breakfast should be number 1, he thought amusedly, spreading his wings out again and wheeled around in the general direction of Cloudsdale, his new future awaiting him. You're kidding me, Soarin muttered. I rarely joke, sir, and I'm certainly not now, a bored-looking pony said across from the desk from him. After arriving in Cloudsdale, scoffing down a large breakfast and tidying himself up, Soarin had immediately headed towards a local job agency. After waiting in a short line, he'd inquired about any open positions for Cloudsdale freight and shipping or the Equestrian Weather Service. Much to his chagrin, the pony had informed him that the only open position at present was several vacancies in the Weather Service, mostly around some town called Ponyville, which Soarin discovered was where he had just flown from. "Look, do you want the job or not?" the pony asked irritably. "I've got better things to do, you know." "Fine, I'll take it." "Good. Now take these forms, sign here and here, then go to the Weather Service headquarters down near the Cloud Factory. I'm sure they'll be happy to have you next." He called, dismissing Soarin like a candy wrapper. "Asshole," Soarin muttered as he marched out of the building. Looking down through the tiers of cloud, Soarin immediately spotted the Cloud Factory, the large water funnel sticking out like a sore spot from the surrounding cloud architecture. Mumbling a few choice words about the bureaucratic system, he floated lazily down towards the compound, carefully to avoid several speeding Pegasi. He swore as one ripped past him a mere foot away from his muzzle. "If I was still on duty, you punk," Soarin muttered, glaring after the wildly corkscrewing Pegasus. Much to his satisfaction, a pair of provosts appeared behind the speedster and forcefully grounded him. Soarin chuckled, a glorious feeling of Schadenfreude spreading through him. Within a few moments he had descended a few more layers and found himself a large yet graceful building. The words Equestrian Weather Service were proudly displayed on the front. Dozens of Pegasi flitted through doors and windows, making the whole place look like a gigantic beehive. Trotting through the front doors, Soarin approached a friendly-looking receptionist. He showed her his papers. "Hi, I was told here to come for..." "To the right, sweetie. First corridor on the left, room 3, she said, cutting him off mid-sentence. Thanks," Soarin said, caught off guard by her brisk manner. Soarin followed the directions the receptionist had given him and entered the third door. "What do you want?" a smartly dressed Pegasus snapped at him. His slick mane bounced as his head snapped to face the intruder. I was told out..." "Don't give me that, you snotty-faced heap of parrot droppings." Taken aback by his abusive behaviour, Soarin drew back slightly. "What?" "Shut your festering gob, you tit. Your type makes me puke. Your vacuous, toffee-nosed, maladrous pervert," he roared. Soarin had had enough. "What? I come here for a job." The Pegasus suddenly drew back in surprise. "Oh, really? Sorry, this is abuse. You want 3A next door?" he said politely. Soarin cocked an eyebrow in surprise. "Oh, well, that explains it." "Thanks," he said, closing the door. "Stupid git," the pony muttered as the door slammed shut. Back out in the corridor, Soarin opened the next door, clearly marked 3A, Supervisor's Office. He poked his head cautiously inside, not wanting to have more abuse held at him. "Welcome," a smooth voice belonging to a slender unicorn said. "I see you took the abuse department quite well," he continued with a light chuckle. "Yeah, you could say that," Soarin muttered, walking into the room proper. He did a double take at the unicorn. "Wait, how are you here?" "Cloud walking spell," the unicorn lazily said. "I see. Please, take a seat," the unicorn gestured. Soarin wordlessly complied. "So, you want a job with the Equestrian Weather Service in our Ponyville department, I see." He laughed softly. "Those positions are almost always open." "Why?" "Let's just say that our team leader is very dedicated to her job. Rubs a lot of ponies up the wrong way." "I see. Anyways, what makes you qualify for this job, Soarin?" "I don't just give these jobs to any pony," the unicorn asked, looking down at his papers. His grin widened when he noted that Wonderbolt was listed under prior occupations. Soarin stammered for a moment. He had little experience with weather control, and besides his remarkable flying skills, which he could hardly use, he had no real qualifications for the job. The unicorn laughed again. I'm kidding. It's just fun to watch the newbies squirm." He pulled a few pieces of paper out from under his desk. "I would never say no to a former Wonderbolt." "Say, I couldn't trouble you for an autograph, could I?" Soarin shrugged and signed the picture the unicorn trussed under his nose. Excellent. Now, just sign here, here, and here. Make sure you read it first, though, he cautioned as Soarin moved to initial the lines. Soarin read through the conditions of employment carefully. Nothing seemed out of place, except it says here I'm bound for 2 years of service. Can't I quit early? The unicorn shook his head. We're looking for dedicated ponies here, no dropouts. Of course, we'll fire you for gross negligence if it comes to that, but no leaving early, barring extenuating circumstances. I see, Soarin muttered. Seeing no other issues with the form, he signed the contract. Good. Now, since I assume you want to get started right away, you can find the Ponyville office down 5 doors, he said after a moment of thought. Thanks. Good luck, the unicorn muttered as Soarin walked out. You're gonna need it. Moving down the corridor again, Soarin reached the aforementioned door. Weather Control Ponyville was etched on a plate hanging on the door. He knocked once and entered. Much to his surprise, the room, save for a tacky desk and chair, was empty. Frowning in confusion, Soarin backed out of the office and walked back to the supervisor's room. Sorry, but there isn't any pony there, Soarin said, sticking his head back through the open door. Oh, right, of course, how could I forget? The unicorn said sarcastically. Rainbow Dash is never in her office. In fact, I don't think she's ever used it. I don't think I could even force her to actually use it. You might want to try looking somewhere over in Ponyville, or in an apple tree somewhere, he tutted quietly. The number of times she's been caught napping on the job. Wait, did you say Rainbow Dash? Soarin asked. The name seemed oddly familiar, but he couldn't place where he'd heard it before. Yes, is that a problem? Soarin groaned internally. She wouldn't happen to have a rainbow mane, magenta eyes and a seeing coat, would she? Oh, you know her then, the supervisor piped up with interest. Yeah, let's go with that, Soarin said, his face flushing red. Thanks. No problem, Unicorn said back cheerfully. Closing the door behind him, Soarin slammed his head into the wall. Oh, you got to be kidding me.